on Friday, I streamed a Blitz tier list where I ranked all of the heroes available to play in Blitz right now based on their position in the meta. And one of the best heroes in the meta right now is Verdance. Yes, that's right. The elemental wizard hero Verdance is quite well positioned into a majority of the decks in the meta. And it's one that if you've never picked up a wizard, she's a fantastic place to start. So today I'm going to share with you my list. I think it's a great list that is pretty easy to pick up and run with, and how it works, why it's good into a majority of the heroes lurking about right now, and how you could maybe take it to a skirmish and get some good results out of it, or make some changes and then take it to a skirmish and get some results out of it. First things first, Verdance. If there are 4 or more Earth cards in your banished zone, she gets whenever you gain life during your turn. You may deal 1 arcane damage to target, or to, I should say, to any opposing hero. Now, does that actually matter? In most games, no. This deck is not really tuned to go online and get value in the long game. Blitz is a format wherein the games aren't going to last for ages. You can, and now more than ever, you can enter into a game that lasts for 10 turns, thanks to, decks like Terra that exist. But if you're not in those types of scenarios, those games are going to last 5 turns, maybe 6 turns. In fact, we can actually look at this right now. The results of this game, most games go for between 5 and 7 turns. 5.5 turns in wins, 7.5 turns in losses. This is the list that I have shared publicly, and some people definitely have picked it up and started playing it. I know I did not play 30 games on this day. Well, no, it looks like 18 games. I played maybe 10 games, and it looks like a couple other people maybe picked up the list and ran with it. And yet, even with this being a public list, it is still sitting at a 73% win rate. Before I shared this version publicly, and maybe I should have made a copy, I had about 100 games in it, and it was sitting around a 77 to 70, maybe 78% win rate. Overall, the deck does quite well into a majority of the heroes. There are some specific bad matchups that this deck does have. There is no watertight Z tier deck, I don't know what you want to call it, in the format, but Verdance is pretty solid. This is an arcane heavy, and in many cases arcane only list. You are attempting to play what we call a Nothos Verdance. Why do we call it a Nothos Verdance? Well, for example, for those that don't know, let me just pull this up. A Nothos is a guardian hammer that came out in the very first set that attacks for 4 if you pitch 3 resources, or if you pitch 2 cards, or have essentially a synergy wherein you've put 2 cards into this. It is a 2-card 6. Now, why do we call it a Nothos Verdance? Well, because that's exactly what we're doing. We are sending these 1-for-4s, pitching a blue. So we spin the card to attack for 4, deal 4 arcane damage, I should say. And pitching a blue, floating 2 resources, we have those resources available to Waning Moon for 2 on our turn. And we're looking to do that just about every single turn that we can. Anytime that we have a blue plus anything that deals 4, we just send it. We have 6 damage every single turn. It's a Nothos, except it's on this card and that card. So that card and the card we pitch, of course. So that's why it's called a Nothos Verdance. It is a pure arcane build that splashes in Fruits of the Forest, and that's about it, with maybe some Fiendl's Fighting Spirits in the sideboard. We can talk about why in a moment, but the goal here is to chip our opponent down through pure value. We are not playing on our opponent's turn just about ever, unless it is to gain some life. Everything else past that is playing a 1-for-4 into a Waning Moon on our turn, and then we are using cards to block. So a typical turn might look something like block with 2 cards, keep a red and an Aether Quickening, or blue I should say, and then pitch the blue to attack for 4, deal 4 arcane damage, and then deal 2 arcane damage. We cycle this. We do this over and over and over again to chip our opponent down until they are in lethal range, and then we, from the top rope, essentially jump off and smack them with Emeritus Scolding or any of these 1-for-4 spells that we can buff up with the combo. Now, in games that are sort of back and forth and the opponent is playing aggressively, we can just as easily execute that game plan. But in games that are going to be a little bit longer, a little bit grindier, we have Rampant Growth Life. And this is both just an extender in the sense that we can send on our opponent's turn, like a combo turn that we want to kill them on. We can send like Aether Quickening. And, we can pitch a Heart of Fandel, and if we're lower, we gain a life. And we can Sigil of Solace and, gain 3 life, and then play Rampant Growth from Arsenal, and amp 4 or 5 in this case, because we get the life effect as well. So amp 5, and so this ends up sending for 9. We can do stuff like that. Into aggressive matchups, that is generally how Rampant Growth is played, or it is, just tossed aside, maybe sunk below. So that you don't have to bother with it, don't have to worry about it. But in longer games, in games that are predicated on running us out of threats or healing out of our effective range of damage, things like, Count Your Blessings Terra, those we pitch stack these Rampant Growth's lives, and we use that in concert with Plume of Evergrowth to play 2 or 3 of them on a turn alongside of another healing piece, and we can make a spell go up to like 30 damage. Now, there's counterplay to that as well, and we can talk about both of those plans, but let's talk about the equipment first. Balance of Justice and Barkskin of the Millennium Tree are both great blocking pieces of equipment. Balance of Justice is probably the MVP of almost every deck in this format, whether you want to admit it or not. If you're playing against, like Brute, this gets value. If you're playing against Mechanologist, this gets value. If you're playing against just about everyone else, this gets 2 block value. For all those that I mentioned, this is getting the 2 block value, plus you can activate it at a key moment to get a card to either block with or to get a card to fuel your turn. So Balance of Justice, fantastic. Barkskin of the Millennium Tree is literally here to block for 3. For the longest time, I was running Tunic, and I would use that one resource every 3 turns to throw an Aether Quickening, or, like an Eternal Inferno, Photon Splicing, a Pulsing Aether Life, something like that, just for the value. I could block with 3 cards, and I could send off of the Tunic counter one of these 1-for-4s. That's fantastic value. But I found that the games where I used like the Tunic once, I could still lose pretty regularly if I just didn't have the capacity to block. And so I can give up some of that like 3-turn value once every 3 turns in order to protect my life to the tune of like 3 extra. We're almost, based on the way that this deck is built, we're almost never getting the value off of the effect when this defends. If there are 4 or more Earth cards in your banish zone, you get an Embodiment of Earth token. You can build around that in a couple of different ways. This version of the list, I've tailored it less in that direction. It used to be more in that direction. Metacarpus Node is just for the +1. Sometimes you use it, sometimes you don't. In the sideboard, we have the Stonewall Gauntlet in place. More often than not, you just run this. It's also nice for AB1 into like Aurora or anyone else like that's throwing rune chants like Vincent now. Storm Striders, because that's how we kill our opponent at the end of the game. Waning Moon, because it's the best wizard staff they've ever made, and that's a whole separate topic we could talk about. Now, the big pieces here, and I wonder if I can separate this out rather easily. If I go pitch, no, if I go name and pitch, no, if I just go pitch, yeah, it kind of works. In the deck, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 different copies of a 1-for-4. These are all, cards that literally just deal 4 arcane damage to our opponent. Some people go all the way up to 10, and I can see the argument there. Instead of going all the way up to 10, I keep it at 8 because it gives me a couple more slots available in the main board to side some things in. Outside of that, those are the main big pieces of the pie that actually get us across the finish line. They allow us to deal that 6 damage per turn. So we're looking to have 8 to 10 of them. If you want to splash in more, feel free. It's really up to you. Now, the other piece of the puzzle that makes this deck do so well is Channel the Millennium Tree. Channel the Millennium Tree is a fantastic piece that just goes way over and above what your opponents can actually deal with. And honestly, it's so good that if you find it early, you just snowball the game out of control. And that's when the game ends in 3 turns. So if you ever play a game against a Verdance and they win in the first 3 or 4 turns, it's because they found Channel the Millennium Tree and they just go way over the top of your defenses as far as Arcane Barrier is concerned. So this card is key. Do keep in mind, though, you would like to keep it around. We have a decent number of Earth cards that we can pitch into this, not a crazy amount. It is something that I would consider changing certain things out, but the problem is a lot of our blues, our blue suite here is really contingent upon blocking 3 and being a spell, and much of our reds are the 1/4s, and so there's not a ton of space outside of that to side in blue block 3s that we can pitch to Channel the Millennium Tree and to Waning Moon. Keep in mind, Channel the Millennium Tree's amp can apply to Waning Moon, so you can literally do a turn where you pitch an Earth card to play Channel the Millennium Tree, and then follow it up by pitching anything like any 2 resource card to attack with Waning Moon for 5, dealing 5 arcane damage, which is quite good. Other cards that we want to feature and highlight, we have 1 red Emeritus Scolding and 1 blue Emeritus Scolding. Interestingly enough, for the longest time, I had 2 red Emeritus Scoldings and no blues. I cut down to 1 and 1 respectively because a blue Emeritus is still pretty solid. It's still a 4 arcane damage card on your opponent's turn, and you can still kill with it. So it's a solid blue block 3 that we can include as well. And I dropped 1 red in favor of a couple of other things that we could cut into the sideboard, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Sigil of Solace rounds out the red suite along with Fruits of the Forest. These are literally just, healing cards. The Fruits of the Forest red is specifically a popper that I added. It used to be Fruits of the Forest yellow, which is still a popper. It's a 6 power attack. The Fruits of the Forest red is a 7 power attack, and it's a little bit better against Prism. If you're not looking at much in the way of Prism in your local meta, cut this, put the yellows back in. I kind of want to do that already because I've just found that 2 extra reds make things a little less consistent. Our base right here is 15 and 16. If we put the reds out and yellows back in, this goes to 13, and then it goes to 5 yellows, which is great because this is a 34 card main deck, and we're going to be adding reds most likely, and probably 2 blues. So like 4 reds and 2 blues is usually what you add in. Most of the time you're adding in these 2 scours into aggressive matchups, and then you're adding in either both defense reactions into aggressive matchups or an extra set of poppers plus Sink Belows or Rootbound. You can decide between the 2. I'm considering maybe cutting Rootbound or maybe leaning more into Decompose. The deck can kind of go in 2 different directions from this point. If you want to decompose more, then you can start splashing in Decompose attacks. If you want to decompose less and you just want to focus on arcane damage, you could cut these and run 2 more like red 1/4s. Like the Scalding Rains is the only one we haven't included in this list. Now, I already talked about Rampant Growth. This is really the key piece for blowing up like Terra and anything else. Your opponent can counterstack you, and you have to play around that when they start getting to their second cycle very quickly. You need to start arsenaling things that you don't necessarily care about to bait out their disruption, like their CNCs and things like that. But Terra Sunder sucks. So if you misstack yourself, then Terra Sunder will just end the game for you. So you do need to probably find the combo pretty quickly against a good Terra. But Rampant Growth gives you the key to doing that alongside of Plume of Evergrowth. The rest of this is pretty much just a good blue that blocks 3, or it's just a good blue. Like we have 1 Aether Arc. I cut 1 to add this blue Emeritus Scolding. So if you want to go the other way, you can. But it's a blue block 3 spell. And keep in mind that to get the value out of Channel the Millennium Tree, you need a spell. And in drawing a blue spell, at least this one comes in for 4 off of Channel the Millennium Tree, and then it sends for Waning Moon. So technically, if you have Channel on the board, this is like an Anothos combo as well. Aether Arc comes in for 4, Waning Moon follows it up for 2, and that is still a 2-card 6, which is cool. Arcane Twining is similar. Keep in mind, all of these Arcane Twinings and like the Photon Splicings here, these can be discarded to amp on a kill turn. I think these are like just the best blues. Like these blues are so underratedly good. There's a reason that these are also in Blaze right now in my Blaze list, because and in a key moment, you could just discard this to get the winning point of damage. Autumn's Touch is not a popper. It's literally just a blue block 3 earth card that we can pitch to Channel the Millennium Tree. Heart of Fandal gains us a life most of the time that we use it, and if we're not getting a life off of this, we are winning the game, and that's good. Winning the game is good. Heartbeat of Candlehold is a must. It's fantastic. We don't get the value off of doing the crazy combo because we are not super decomposing in this list, but in any case, it is an earth card, it is a 3-block, it is a blue, and it can gain us life in a pinch. And finally, we have 1 copy of Seeds of Tomorrow. I used to have 2 in the list, but cutting down to 1 feels pretty solid. So that's the main board. This is what you're running into everyone. Sideboards, pretty simple. Most of the time, you're putting in Rootbound Carapace and Sink Below and Scour, and that makes your 40 right there. If you're going against someone that you think is going to try and fatigue you or play a very measured game plan, you put the Healing Potions in, and instead of the Scours. Healing Potion comes in, and you can choose whether or not you want to try and be more aggressive by playing Fyendal's Fighting Spirit into them to throw a mixture of physical damage alongside of those reds and arcane damage. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter. Or you can play defensively and try to get online with Rootbound Carapace. Keep in mind, these decompose right here. This is like all you're doing. So you find these 2 cards, you decompose, and you're off to the races. But you have to find those 2 cards and actually decompose in order to use them effectively, because we did cull the number of decomposed cards in this deck. I used to run like the blue attack that blocks for 2, that if you decompose it removes an aura from the board. I used to run that one, and I might go back to that. I think it's down here. Where is it? Yeah, Summer's Fall. I used to run Summer's Fall a little bit. I thought that was pretty solid. It's not too terribly bad. Yellow Fruits I miss dearly. It's fantastic. I don't run Will of Arcana in this list, but you definitely could. And as far as like siding, you're really, it's pretty self-explanatory. In most matchups, you just pop these in there and you just call it a day. This is obviously for poppers as well. Any illusionist that you're feeling, you can throw this in for, and you're good to go. And then finally, of course, we bring Alluvian Constellus into the Blaze matchup. This is one of the decks that has the best time playing against Blaze. I think Blaze is fantastic into the meta as well. Verdance says, no, I'm better as far as Wizards are concerned. In that matchup, you play Alluvian Constellus, and you just have so much gas in the tank, which is fantastic. And then, of course, you bring in Plume for those long games. So this is where the deck stands as far as results are concerned. If you want to look at the breakdowns, Arachne Solitary Confinement, in my opinion, is one of the scarier matchups in the meta for this deck. It does currently, with this list, have a minus win rate. So if you do have Arachne Solitary Confinement in your meta, then you should watch out for this. But I do think you can do some stuff to sort of curb that, play more defensively, or if you want to make some changes to the deck list, you can bring in like Felling of the Crown and see if that works. More often than not, though, you're just playing defensively and chipping them down as much as possible. Syndra, when I was testing this a while back, Syndra was pretty popular, and I do think Syndra is pretty decent right now, but I don't think she's going to be showing up very much. The big question mark is Dash Database. This is the one that I would definitely worry about as well, alongside of Arachne Solitary Confinement. And I do think Data Doll, if they high roll you, then they just win the game. But you can actually fatigue Data Doll. So this is a positive against some mechanologists and terrifying against Dash Database, which is not the popular mechanologist right now. So it really kind of weighs your options there. Dromai seems pretty even. Dorinthia Quicksilver Prodigy seems pretty even. The rest of these seem pretty even. Funnily enough, I think Prism 2 you're actually not terrible into, because you do have a lot of defensive tools to stop their stuff for as long as possible, and they don't really bring a ton of arcane barrier. So this list, in my opinion, is pretty fantastic for the meta. If you're looking for a place to start, this is a great way to sort of jump on it and tackle it. This is where the deck started, for those that are curious. This is kind of how it began. This was my first draft, and after a bunch of testing and a bunch of attempts and trials, I eventually settled on what we see here. Still a work in progress, and if you want to follow my journey working on this deck alongside of me, I'm going to be releasing a guide in a week or so over on Metafy, breaking this down to the T with gameplay, with changes made to the deck and testing alongside of it. If you'd like to pick up that guide and support the channel, it would mean the world to me. So many people have already chimed in saying how much they loved the Blaze guide, and I really want to put things out that people people can use and feel good about and learn from what I've learned. So if that's something you're interested in, leave a comment down below so that I can know, and I will make more of these. Of course, if you enjoy just like simple talky deck techs like this, make the number go to the other number, because that's pretty awesome. As always, thanks for watching.